Marriage is a time for experimentation and new experiences. My wife offered me an unusual, daring fantasy, but unfortunately I was not ready for it. But I could not have guessed the chain of events that would unfold when she decided to do it without me. I uncovered her infidelity and came up with the cruelest punishment she deserved. Today I will share with you this incredible story and tell you how my wife paid a high price for her thirst for experimentation in bed. Valia asked him to fix her laptop, which had frozen in the middle of her term paper. The girl was so nervous and upset that she wouldn't be able to finish on time, so Dima took pity on her and let her use his personal laptop. In gratitude, Valia agreed to go on a date with him. After 7 years of marriage and a life together, their relationship began to change. His wife became more irritable, finding more and more flaws in Dmitry, and their marital duties became a source of torture. It was a difficult time, but they both tried to work on their relationship, knowing that it was just a temporary crisis. One evening, Valentina was out with her friends, and when she returned home, she playfully suggested to her husband that they spice up their intimate life. Dima liked the idea and asked what his beloved would like. She hesitated for a long time, avoiding a direct answer, but eventually admitted that she wouldn't mind inviting someone else into their bed. She even registered on a special website that connects people for such purposes. My husband got angry and sharply rejected the idea. He was disgusted at the mere thought of it. For him, a third person was always unnecessary. He couldn't understand how his loving wife could suggest such a thing. It was in fact adultery, even with his permission. Dmitry was so outraged by her proposal that he ignored Valia the entire next day. In the evening, she apologized. "I didn't realize it would upset you so much," Valentina said. "I'm sorry, I was wrong." "I'm sorry too," Dima replied, feeling conflicted. He didn't think he had anything to apologize for, as his reaction was perfectly logical. But the idea of testing his wife's honesty had been lingering in his mind. He wondered how far she would go to fulfill her desire. The plan had been brewing in his head for weeks, and Dima wondered if it was worth it to start, knowing there might be no turning back. But he decided it was better to act and regret than to regret not acting. So he began to put his plan into action. Dmitry told Valentina that he was going on a business trip. The pretext, of course, was far-fetched. No business trip was out of the question. He had taken a leave of absence from work and moved into a rented apartment for 2 weeks. He decided to ask his old acquaintance Petya, whom his wife had never seen, to participate in his play. Petya was surprised but did not refuse to help, because he himself had recently broken up with his girlfriend due to her infidelity. He wanted to support Dmitry in his difficult situation. To get him started, he created a page with false information and a photo of his friend. In the section about himself, he wrote that he enjoyed experiments and did not mind having fun with married women. While Dmitry was doing all this, he felt a bubbling anger inside him. Deep down, he truly hoped that his plan would fail, and that Valia would turn out to be an honest woman who would not cheat on her husband just because he refused a third person in their bed. For a whole week, he had been working through his correspondence to drive a wedge between his own wife and a stranger. Valia unashamedly told him about her secret desires, that her husband did not accept her, and she had decided to satisfy her needs on the side. Sometimes the communication annoyed Dmitry so much that he turned off his phone and tried to distract himself from the words written by his own wife. Dima began to wonder how far Valia would be willing to go, and if she had enough conscience to continue this game. Would she actually meet the mysterious stranger from the network? He began to offer her a meeting to get to know each other better. But his wife surprised him by immediately asking about the meeting for which the acquaintance was made. The day was set. Dmitry and Peter worked out a plan of action, discussed everything, and began to wait for the designated day. Since Dmitry was on a business trip for his wife, he was able to go about his business without any hindrance. He even began to think that this was his mission, to expose his unfaithful wife and possibly even punish her. He imagined in vivid detail the scene where she would enter the room blindfolded, and then he would remove the blindfold and she would see her husband in person. He wanted his wife to throw herself at his feet, begging for forgiveness, and he would decide whether or not to have the courage to forgive her. On the appointed day, the men discussed the plan once more. Dmitri stayed to wait for the couple in the apartment, while Peter left to meet Valentina. Dmitri paced around the apartment, feeling like a trapped tiger. The adrenaline in his blood was running high, and he could not calm down. An hour later, Petya texted him that they were on their way. Dmitri walked around the apartment one more time, looking for any evidence that could point to him, since he had been living there for 2 weeks, and lurked in his room, trying not to make a sound. After a while, he heard the front door open and then 2 voices, Mirsky's and a woman's. In Valentina's voice, the husband heard notes of coquetry. It was the tone she used to speak to him before intimacy. The voice was smooth, lingering, and the words sounded like a chant. Anger at his wife overwhelmed Dima. He was waiting for a tentative sign from Peter, and so when he shouted something to Vala from the kitchen about his choice of drink for the evening, the man knew that things were about to happen. The door to the room burst open and Dima saw his wife. She was dressed in his favorite dress, which advantageously emphasized her figure, and over her eyes was a black mask. "Take it off," ordered Peter. "You are in for a surprise." Valentina took off the mask, looked around the room, and was horrified to see Dima sitting on the bed. He was looking at her with disdain. "What is going on?" She looked at him incredulously, dazed. "I'd like to ask you," Dmitri grinned bitterly, and answered. Unexpectedly, Valya went on the attack and began to defend herself. "It's your fault, and for you, I did it." "You could have immediately agreed," she screamed, "and none of this would have happened." Her cheeks were flushed either with shame or indignation. She furrowed her brow and wept as hard as she could to keep from crying. Valentina, with all her soul, did not want to admit her mistake. She believed that her husband had pushed her to do this to herself. Dmitri did not want to have it out with his wife. He paid for the singing of his work, and they parted on that sad note. He forbade Valentina from coming near their apartment, saying that he would bring all of her belongings to her parents. Valya begged him not to tell them the reason for the divorce. She knew that her parents would be horrified by her actions. But Dima really wanted to hurt her as much as she did, so he did not hide anything. He told his parents-in-law and mother-in-law what had happened. Her parents' reaction was exactly as Valya had expected. Her mother stopped talking to her, even though they had to live together for a long time afterwards. The woman sadly recalled the years she had lived together with her husband. They had hobbies together and often cried. She still loved her husband, but Dmitri left for another city, severing all the ties that bound them. Valentina tried to find him through friends, but they said they did not know what had happened to Dima and where he was. It is sad when spouses cannot agree on something, and one person continues to push the boundaries despite the protests of their partner. After all, marriage is all about compromise. The wife's fantasy was too bold and went against her husband's principles, but the woman decided that she would do it by all means. But now she has every opportunity to fulfill such a fantasy, even every day. In our world, there are many ways to capture your most brilliant moments on camera, but what if one of those moments is cheating? What if you happen to get caught on camera during your transgression? That's what happened to the wife I'm going to tell you about today. Her inadvertently posted video led to big consequences that she couldn't have predicted. Listen to my cheating stories and learn how some people fall into their own traps. Leonin first saw Elena when she was 15, and he himself was celebrating his coming of age a week later. Elena was a friend of his sister Valentina. He invited them both to his party, and later there he confessed his feelings to Elena. The girl did not reject him, and from that day their relationship began. 5 years later, Leonia decided to propose to Elena, and she did not hesitate to agree. The wedding was postponed for a year because she was in her last year of college and did not want to mix the two important events. This summer, she would devote to her graduation and rest, and the rest of the time, she would prepare for the wedding. Time passed, and the date of the wedding the couple chose was approaching. The restaurant had been paid for, invitations to guests had been sent out, and the bride had already bought a lavish white dress. "Have you already chosen the place you're going to for the bachelor party?" asked Elena, her future husband, in between. Leonia replied that they would go to a bar to watch Stalker. She rolled her eyes, but didn't say anything to him about it. Later, she shared with him that her friend Marina had promised her a surprise, and Elena knew nothing about the plans for her bachelorette party. On the appointed day, Marina called Elena and said that she would pick her up in 2 hours. Elena made a joyful sound and ran to get ready. It seemed to her that she was looking forward to the bachelorette party even more than the wedding itself. All the way, her friend did not answer her questions about the venue of the bachelorette party, which fueled her interest. But soon they were at the yacht club, and the bride squealed with delight. They rode on the yacht for several hours, admiring the local beauty and taking pictures. Champagne flowed like a river, and Elena was already very drunk. Their captain was a young man of about 30. His name was Arthur, and he had a tanned body from frequent exposure to the sun and beautiful muscles playing under a tight t-shirt. Elena looked at him the whole time of the swim, and Marina, with a wink, whispered conspiratorially in her ear that it would be a great adventure before the wedding. Before the wedding, without noticing it herself, Aliona sat down with the captain and began flirting with him. Arthur, at first reluctantly, and then more and more willingly, responded to the hints of the intoxicated woman. In another second, they were kissing. Arthur shamelessly guided his hand under her shirt. Leonid received a call from his future wife and, with a slurred tongue, said that they had gone to her friend's place to continue the evening. The man wished them a good rest, and then stretched out on his bed and fell asleep. Leonid woke up early and saw that Aliona was still not home. Most likely she had fallen asleep at Irina's place. Without getting out of bed, Leonid picked up his phone to check his newsfeed. On one of the social networks, he saw that one of Aliona's friends had posted photos and videos from yesterday's party. Overwhelmed by curiosity, Leonid clicked on the picture on the screen. Everything looked great: the nature, the sunset on the water, and a happy Aliona who was shouting to the whole world that she was getting married. At first, Leonid couldn't make out anything in the next video, but when he increased the brightness of the screen, he noticed 2 figures, a man and a woman. The woman was sitting on the lap of a man who appeared to be the captain of a yacht. Their lips were joined in a kiss, and the man's hands were expertly trying to pull her jeans off. The woman was only wearing jeans and a bra, while her white shirt lay crumpled under their feet. With horror, Leonid realized that it was his future wife sitting on the captain's lap. He saved the video and continued to watch it again and again until it was eventually deleted. It seemed that Aliona's friend had seen what she had shared yesterday in her drunken state and cleaned up the evidence. Unfortunately, it was too late. Leonid's first reaction was a desire to hit someone or break something to vent his emotions. Then he thought about calling Aliona right away and telling her that the wedding was off. He decided to go out on the balcony for a smoke. It was early morning and the birds were enjoying the warm sun and singing their songs. As he smoked, Leonid's brain was frantically thinking about what he should do. The thought of a plan didn't come to him right away, but when it did, he already knew what he would do. He made no sign that he was aware of what had happened, and continued to show his love for his bride as much as possible. The wedding was only a week away, and preparations were in full swing. Leonid had prepared a surprise for the bride that neither she nor their guests would ever forget. Be able to forget? The wedding day was beautiful. Leonid looked sadly at his now wife. He understood that this marriage would not last very long, for he had already set himself a goal, and he would not turn away from this path. In the evening, when all the guests were assembled in the restaurant, the contests were held, and the dancing was done, Leonid asked the presenter for a microphone to announce his little gift for his wife. He gave the presenter a flashcard in advance, on which was stored a video made up of their photos. The projector was turned on, and everyone could see Leonid's gift to Elena. The video was made to a dramatic tune, and Leonid spoke into the microphone, expressing his memories of all the moments he shared with Elena, from the day they first met to the present. His speech was touching, bringing tears to many people's eyes and causing some to cry from sheer emotion. But then came the moment that would end the video, and most likely this wedding and their future life together. The same video from the yacht that Leonid had downloaded appeared on the screen. The guests gasped at what they saw, and Elena's face turned an unhealthy red. She jumped out of her chair and ran out of the hall, while her friend, who had posted the video, sat at the table with her hands covering her mouth. Dear guests, I hope you understand. Thank you for being a part of our celebration. But unfortunately, it's over, and so is our marriage, Leonid said before quickly walking out after his wife. Elena was waiting for him outside, shaking from either the cool night air or anger. She threw herself at Leonid, beating his chest with her small fists. You ruined my wedding, she screamed, tears streaming down her cheeks. I made a mistake, and you ruined my life, embarrassed me. How could I face all those people, my parents? Her screams echoed, and Leonid couldn't fully believe that this was all happening to him. He gave Elena a few days to pack her things and move out, but she did it faster. She had to go live with her friend Marina because her mother refused to let her on the doorstep after the shame she had endured. Marina supported Elena until the end and wondered how rude and heartless Leonid had been to her. After their divorce, Elena met other men, but unfortunately she was unhappy with all of them. Even many years later, she remembered Leonid and the love and respect he had shown her before his betrayal. Leonid's life was much better. He met a woman with whom he could create a strong family. But Elena gave up when she was left alone with a child from her second marriage. She started drinking and was laid off from her job because of it. Her mother had to take her unhelpful daughter back to her place to help her come to her senses. So Boomerang came back to Alyona and hurt her deeply. This is the story. Share your thoughts in the comments about this situation and the behavior of the characters.